There it is. Hello, welcome to Thinking Out Loud, a podcast that explores, I've been trying to figure out how to answer that, what it explores, because it explores the mind of a pastor, but doesn't that sound scary?
Yikes.
Yeah, so I don't know if we're going to go with
Do
that
we really want to go there?
I don't know that we do. Welcome today. Really, what I want to accomplish through this podcast is simple, but difficult. It's difficult because it's a daily battle, but I have been thinking much about 1 Corinthians chapter 1, especially 26 through about 30, where Paul says God has chosen the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. He's chosen the weak things to destroy the strong. And he talks about the powerful. He's chosen the weak. Not many powerful are chosen, not many wise, not many of noble birth. And really, as I've thought about that, I've thought about this. Here's what I want to accomplish on this podcast. Paul says, consider your calling. Look around you and see there's not many people who are wise or powerful or noble. You are it. I am it, right? If you say to me, Pastor PJ, I am none of those things, how can God use me? You are exactly the person God has chosen, and we need to get busy going. That's really what I have found my heart is for this podcast. And today is no different. Today really is going to go right along with that. So we're glad that you're here today. I need to get this out of the way. If you are new, make sure that you subscribe. If you're watching on YouTube, I would love it. It would be a great encouragement to me if you would hit the subscribe button. Also, would be wonderful if you would, if you comment and like, let us know what you think about this podcast. Jump in the conversation. Also, you can find this podcast on any of the major podcasts. Just search Thinking Out Loud with PJ, and you can find it. Anyways, so here we are today. Many of you know me, but I thought I would quick introduce myself. For those of you who are jumping in, maybe you found this podcast brand new. This is your first time. It is called Thinking Out Loud with PJ, and I am your host, Pastor Joshua, or PJ. I am a lead pastor at First Baptist Church in Howard City, Michigan. Howard City is a tiny little town, one stoplight, that's it. If you count the Subway in our gas station, we have a fast food restaurant, but otherwise no fast food.
Hey, that's incredible for some of our towns in Michigan, though, right? I mean, that's big.
Right. I know.
That's great.
I know. So enjoying ministering here for now almost 6 years. One of the things the Lord has really laid on our heart here is, and He's taught us He's beginning to teach us what it looks like for biblical disciple making. Really, that ties into this conversation that we're going to have. But I am Pastor Joshua, senior pastor here, or lead pastor here. Today, our conversation, as I said, really is going to center around really realizing that you and I are it. We are the ones that need to be doing this. Scott, welcome. For those of you who have been here before and continue to listen and watch, this is back-to-back times that I've had Scott on the podcast, so this is great. But at the end of the last podcast, we started a conversation, and for us, that was about a month ago, even though this is the way they released. But for us, that was about a month ago, and we started a conversation. We started praying. The Lord has given us a great burden. We are extremely excited today because we cannot wait to have this conversation with you. Today, we're going to have a conversation about, of course, making resilient disciples. Scott, introduce yourself and let's talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah, certainly. And it has been a joy and a privilege to get to know you and spend more time with you. And I look forward to this. Who knows where God's going to take this?
Yeah.
So we're really excited about it. So we're going to share a little bit about that today, what we're thinking. But one a missionary here in Northern Michigan and serve about 85 churches here in Northern Michigan, including the UP, which we're going to include the UP as part of Michigan, right? I mean,
we have to. We love it up there, don't we?
Incredible people up there, yeah. We were just up there the other day. So, serving churches that have Awana and reaching out to potential new churches. But God has just laid it on our hearts to have this conversation about making resilient disciples.
Yeah.
And so we're looking forward to that. Again, this is a conversation that we've been having. If we have a couple other podcasts we've done recently that this is just kind of an outworking of that, right?
Yeah, we keep coming back to this conversation naturally, so we thought, man, maybe we need to really just lean into this, focus on this.
So what we've talked about doing is really diving into this book, Resilient, that's come out from Awana, Valor Bell, Chris Marchand, Matt Markins, Mike Handler, Child Discipleship and the Fearless Future of the Church. Mm-hmm. And I know, Pastor, you've read this book,
yes.
And you know, I have as well, and it's becoming a great conversation piece. So what we've talked about doing is in the next year, working from one chapter. The first chapter 1 is in January, right? So middle of January, we'll come back together on a platform like this, do it live.
Yes.
So we can incorporate other people potentially to
So
to
what,
call in.
Scott, what is the benefit? Maybe I need to answer this, but what is the benefit? Why would we have been doing this in the podcast format? And we'll talk about it in a minute. You're still going to be able to get it there. But why would we do this live instead of just continue to record the conversation?
Yeah, great, because we want to invite our viewers to be a part of the conversation.
Yes.
So we're asking to ask for this book for Christmas.
Yeah,
right?
perfect timing.
I think it may fit in a stocking stuffer, right? You could probably put this in a stock.
And if you get Christmas break, you can read it on Christmas break. I am not a fast reader. I read that book in a day.
Yeah.
I couldn't put it down, by the way.
It's a really easy read. And then we come together and we can, you can call in. You can chat live with us, and we can engage with you in this crucial conversation, very timely conversation that we want to have.
And we'll mention this several times, but we have a landing place for you as well that we want you to know about, because we want to drive everybody there. We want to keep this conversation going. So right now, today, live on Facebook, right? We have it ready to go. If you just get on Facebook and search A Resilient Conversation with Scott and PJ, you will find our Facebook page there. And we've created that simply to bring everybody there. And we want you to have a conversation there. If there's things you're struggling through with this, if you have questions for us, maybe you don't get to watch it live and you want to watch it later on or listen on the podcast. Again, we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but it gives you a place where you can have conversation. And let's just say this, Scott and I, you and I are not experts by any means, right? And so we want your help too. It may be that somebody says, man, I've been thinking through this. This is something we're working on, and I'm really struggling in this area. And maybe somebody else can jump on and say, hey, we struggled in this area too, but here's how we overcame that. So we want this to be a community. We don't want it to just be, Scott and I or others that we might have on with us, but we want you guys to start to connect in that way. And help each other out.
And PJ, we've talked about this in our other podcasts, but this is a conversation starter. This is a place to come and to engage in a very timely conversation, one that needs to be had.
Yes.
And really ask the question, this book really asks the question, are we doing enough? Are we doing an adequate job to raise up child disciples for the fearless future of the church? Are they going to be adequately prepared for that time in 2050 when they're going to be facing significant challenges? I mean, we would be amiss to not recognize that 2050, it's going to be an interesting day. I mean, talk about going to war.
Well, I think, and Awana would say this, right? That was written with 2050 in mind in 2019, having no idea what 2020 was going to bring.
Right.
I think probably as we read that I read it during the pandemic, so when we were locked down. But if you would have read that in 2019 and then 2020 hit, you probably felt like you were in 2050 already.
Oh, certainly. I was feeling that. I was like, wow, we just time warped, I know we can't do that, right? But well, some out there claim on the internet that
I don't
they
know
can
if
do
we
it.
want to go down that road.
Okay,
here.
we're not going to go down that road. But so it's really incredible in the timeliness of this conversation, and that's why we said, 2021. Hey, let's start a conversation. Let's really lean into this, like you had mentioned, Pastor. And I know you read the book. You also, and we've talked about this in our other podcasts, but you've done a book review, and so when
if you're brand new, go check out my channel. That's probably where you're finding this. If you're hearing this on a podcast, I have a YouTube channel. The easiest way right now, because my channel is small enough, I can't have one of those cool specific names yet on YouTube. Soon, hopefully. Help me get there, guys. Help me get there. I need about 20 more subscribers, and I can do this.
Is this an advertisement?
It is. I'm going to throw in an advertisement for my YouTube channel. But anyway, the easiest way to find all of these things is to go to firstbaptisthc.com. That's firstbaptisthc.com. And there's a tab there that says Thinking Out Loud. And then when you click that tab, you can find both the podcast and the YouTube channel. Go to my YouTube channel. You'll find Scott and is that the way Scott and mine's? I don't know. You'll find our previous conversation there. And we have had a couple already. And then you will also find, if you go way down the list, you will find a book review that I have there. I'm going to warn you, it's not very good. That was, I think, literally the second YouTube channel I ever shot.
Well, you wouldn't have known that. I thought it was incredible.
Well, I look at it now and I think it's crazy. But anyways, go check that out. So, but that'll tell you a little bit about the book, because it impacted me enough that I said, hey, I need to do a YouTube review on this, and I need to give one away. So I gave one away. We've actually been able to give a couple away in our church. Let me tell you this. I think this is important to know. This is not, how do I say this? Awana is aware of this.
Yeah, we're not getting any kickbacks.
But they're not. No. We're not being paid by Awana for this or in any way. In fact, I'll tell you this. I mentioned we have been for probably close to 5 years now, been very specifically, intentionally pursuing a culture of disciple making in our church from the top down, not just kids, but with everybody. And with that being said, often somebody will say, oh, you're into discipleship and here's a book. And Scott said, hey, I think here's a book you need to read. And he gave it to me.
Well, and I thought that because of the things you had been sharing. I was like, this aligns perfectly with what, and you're like, yeah, okay, a book, right?
Yeah. So I'm like, okay, if you're a pastor and you're watching, you probably have a pile of books to read. You're like, how am I going to get to this? But because I like Scott, I figured I'd read it. So I owed it to Scott to read the book, and I couldn't put it down. It was just spot on with where my heartbeat is, where our heartbeat is as a church, and I have encouraged our people to read it. I'm going to continue. If you're a member of First Baptist Church or an attender, if you are working in our Awana, or if you are just teaching in Sunday school, please pick up the book, take this challenge with us. But here's the thing. I read that book, and now it continues to be part of my conversation and my thinking. So I say all that to say, this is coming from our heart. This is not coming from somebody asking us to do this. We believe that this is one of the most important conversations we can have right now. Oh,
certainly, yeah. And so how this works out is we want to invite you on a journey.
Yeah,
a conversation. This isn't just for us. We would like you to join in on this with us, and we're gonna take a deep dive and ask some good questions, and really want to engage with people out there, whether they're in Northern Michigan or California.
Hey, we don't care where you're from.
No, we don't.
No, we want you to jump in. And what we don't care also, so we're sitting here wearing Resilient Disciple shirts, right? And again, I wanted to have anything to do with this. I asked Scott, I said, hey, can you hook me up with one of those? And he did. But I have told several pastors and church leaders, I don't care if you're working in Awana or you're doing your own thing. Read this book. If you are working with kids, read this book. If you are a parent, read this book. Because here's, again, this is where this resounds so much with me, is in the days we're living in, I struggle. My faith in God struggles the most in the area when it comes to my kids, because I fear for my kids, and I have to constantly remind myself God loves them more than I do. Yeah, I also, as a parent, have a responsibility to be creating resilient disciples. I have a responsibility now to be raising them up so they can face the world that's ahead of them. But that being said, I have a deep desire that when I bring them to church, whether it's Awana, whether it's Sunday school, whether it's children's church, whatever it is, I have a deep desire that as I'm entrusting them to those teachers, they're coming alongside of that vision. They're not just giving them a cool Bible story, but they are working to build disciples. And so for me, this is really this is a thing that hits real close to home.
And it's been challenging, right?
Yeah.
And I think we talked just a little bit ago about this is an area that we could work on.
Yeah, it's challenging me to really reevaluate. My wife and I have had several conversations about our home. How can we do a better job of this in our home? And it's challenging me as well to make sure that as a church we're focusing putting enough focus on our kids, and not just assuming that the right things are happening.
Definitely.
So, why then, we've kind of said, why is this conversation so important? I think we've hit on a couple of those things, but one of the things you're going to find is if you follow along with us, Scott and I have become pretty good friends. We've enjoyed some good times together. Really, ministry has brought us together. This discipleship conversation, I think, has brought us together. But you're going to find that we're coming at this from two different ways, right? You are
certainly
an Awana missionary, and you just have a heartbeat for the kids, for Awana Ministries, and that's great. We need that. I'm coming at this from a lead pastor role, right? And I'm seeing, like you said, it's my ecclesiology is constantly kind of thinking through this stuff. So for me, I say, why do we need this conversation? If you're a pastor watching, I want you to think through, why do we need this conversation? But if you are just working, I say just, and I don't mean it that way, but you don't have to be a pastor. This is important for you to hear. If you are coming on Wednesday nights and working with Awana kids, or you're teaching Sunday school, here's what I'm seeing as a pastor. I'm seeing churches that are struggling. They're closing. They're not growing. They're closing. They can't find pastors. Just the landscape of our church here in America right now is struggling, right? There's so many churches that don't have pastors, and there's so few pastors being raised up. Well, here's the thing. The book, it talks about preparing our kids for 20, 50, 30 years from now. But here's a question. What's the church going to look like in 30 years from now? And to change that landscape starts now. Right, these kids that are coming in on Wednesday nights, these kids that are a part of our Sunday school classes, they are the laborers of the next generation. I believe strongly, and Scott would too, they are not the church of tomorrow. They are the church of today, but they are the leaders of tomorrow. We need to be investing now. I feel a responsibility as a pastor that we as churches have not been doing what we should have been doing to the best of our ability, and we can put some of the blame on ourselves now because we haven't done what we should have done before.
Yeah, and that's a good observation, big picture, right? Of where we're at and where we need to go. The concept that this book talks about and really pulls out is the idea that we need to get the message to the kids that God wants them to love Him for the rest of their lives. It's discipleship. It's long term. It's not just coming and listening to a verse or saying a verse, but it's embedded in their heart and have that be a part of who they are, and engaging in a long term discipleship, and having that loving, caring adult that we've the book talks about as well.
Yeah, and if you don't know what he's talking about, get the book and read it, so you'll know.
Definitely. Yeah, we're excited about this conversation.
Yeah. If you can tell, we're pumped up, a little nervous. Honestly, I am, because I have such a heavy burden for this, and the more I've prayed about it, and since we've kind of birthed this idea, I have found myself just extremely burdened for it. I read a quote a couple of weeks ago through I think it's a parenting Facebook page that Amy's a part of, but it says it's easier to it's easier to build strong children than repair broken adults. So maybe this is my lazy way out, right? As a pastor who deals with the adults, let's not have so many broken adults, right? Let's build them up strong in the beginning.
Yeah.
Because here, I've shared this with you, but if you're watching and you don't know, I have a unique privilege of being I'm on the fire department and the rescue here in our town. So I'm out and about, and it is interesting to me how many houses I get in, and there's brokenness. I would walk in that house and never think there was any thought of God whatsoever. And when they find out that I'm the pastor of this church, I can't tell you how many times I've heard, oh, I went to Awana in that church.
Right.
And I'm telling you, that breaks my heart because we've missed something. Because what have we done? We had this time with these kids. They were here. They were hearing the word. But now where are they?
Well, and that's where the book really dives into, the belong, right?
Yeah.
Creating that belonging, believe, become. And we'll dive. I know that it's coming. We want to dive into it right now, don't we? It's like, let's go for it. But
so much stuff.
But building that community within a church, right, where the kids are not just segmented over here, but they're a part of that church. They have a belonging within that church. They have that loving, caring adult. They have that place,
right,
that they can call home. in a lot of ways. And many of it, like you're talking about the brokenness out there, many of our homes don't have that.
No.
Right? We look at our homes and, we have stability, but I mean, you walk in some of these homes, it's just like third world. It's tough to see these kids, in those settings.
And it's interesting you bring that up, Scott, because really I feel like that's kind of the great rub of what we're talking about, and where the conversation will go over the next year, really, because the Bible is beyond clear that the first most important discipler of kids is who?
The parent.
The parent, yeah. And for so long, by the way, we've pushed that off on the church. The church has failed, so now we've just overall failed. But we also recognize that when we're working with young people, especially if you're involved in Awana, it just seems often that you're pulling those kids in. If you're pulling them in from youth group, you have many kids who are coming in from unsaved homes. They will not get an opportunity to have a parent disciple them. So that lands on you.
Yeah, so there's really two conversations here we're kind of already talking about, is the parent within the church that we need to encourage for the parent to get involved in the discipleship of their children, and recognize that the church is a part of that. But it's a partnership.
Yes.
But then we also have that other side where those kids in the community that don't have that, we need to help fill that gap.
Yes,
the church
exactly.
really can step in and fill that gap that is there in the lives of these kids, and who knows, that child from the community could be the next Billy Graham.
Right.
So those leaders who are caring and loving those kids, investing their time. If you're a leader out there today, thank you for being on the front lines of the lives of these kids, because you never know that kid that you're working with, how they may impact the world with the gospel.
Right. And from a parent standpoint, I can say there's nothing more fun than Sunday morning or even Wednesday night. We get home and the kids are all excited about what they've learned, and it sticks, right? And we are constantly grateful here. Our church has oodles of little kids, and we are so grateful. We know the work that goes into that, and we're grateful because you are impacting my family, and I appreciate that. Here's what we want to do, though. We want to make sure that as you are impacting, that we are making the best use of that time, that we are really having an impact in raising up resilient disciples. Really, what sucked me into this book was I didn't even get to chapter 1 yet, and Valerie Bell wrote basically it's like a letter to the kids and apologizing in a lot of ways and saying, hey, could it be that we have worked so hard to give you a great program, to have you come into church and feel even loved, yes, and a part of what's going on, but we had a lot of fun, and we told some cool Bible stories, but it never translated into adulthood. It never really impacted your life. And she says, so have we failed the kids, basically, and said, maybe we've had a great time in Sunday school or in church, but have we produced resilient disciples? Yeah,
have we done an adequate job? Back
Right.
to that question, are we doing an adequate job to make resilient disciples that can withstand, that can, that whole concept, talk about in the book, and I don't want to dive into it too much because we don't want to give them everything right now, right?
We want them to come back.
But that concept of, having that spine and heart,
Yeah.
to be able to stand firm against the culture that's going to be against them, but also love that culture like Christ would love.
Yeah. Yeah. So you say that spine and heart, man, I'm dealing with adults, right, as a senior pastor. And right now in 2020, adults are struggling with spine and heart because of the culture and the circumstances. So what in the world is it going to look like in 2050? Because the Bible tells us, it promises us that it will get worse. It won't get better. We know that, so let's be ready for it.
And I've seen some things too. Why this is timely for the church too is I'm hearing out there, and there's some podcasts and conversations happening about the coming back to the Wednesday night program.
Yeah.
And it's awesome to hear. Like I was talking to Parkside Bible Church in Holland recently, a brand new church with Awana. And again, I'm coming back to Awana, right?
Right, that's okay.
My perspective. This is my perspective.
You're going to hear a lot about Awana.
You are.
We just want you to know that you don't have to be Awana.
Exactly.
To jump in on
but this church, talking to the leaders, I've been trying to get a hold of the pastor. A leader called and had some questions, brand new with Awana, and they're just excited. So they started off, they had 15 kids, and they were just blown away by that, right? And but then they said, you know what? God did an incredible thing. After 3 or 4 weeks. Now they're at 30. They doubled it, over 30 kids, and they're just excited about that. So
against all odds.
Against
right?
all odds. I mean, my goodness,
would this
what
be?
starting in this season with COVID and
there's a huge percentage right now of churches, and you probably know better the stat, but there's a huge percentage of churches that are not doing anything for the young people. I think Awana is seeing that even from what I'm hearing. But
what about the children? I think we've talked about that.
Here they're starting one,
right?
And God's blessing that.
Yeah, that's grit, right?
Yeah,
I mean, that's
exactly.
Getting creative and getting in there dirty and working for the souls of these kids.
Well, we've said it in our other conversations, but if you're here and you're new, I want to say this, that I think every church reevaluated their ministries. If you didn't, you should have reevaluated your ministries during the shutdown time. And I know there's some churches not back yet, but thankfully we are. But I asked our Awana commander, and I said, hey, guys, let's think about this. Are we doing Awana just because we always do it? Is it beneficial to take a break, or do you want to do Awana this year? Because it's going to be hard. We're going to have to do things differently. Right. We might not have all the leaders. And the answer was pretty quickly yes, because what if there's one person we can reach? What if there's one kid? And we're already seeing that.
And is it worth it? That's what we talked about in our last podcast.
Yeah, at one point I said this, and probably like 2 podcasts ago when you were with me, I said, I would be offended if you said my kid was not worth it.
Ooh, wow.
You know?
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you're bringing it
Think
home right
it,
there.
Right?
You're bringing it home. Yeah, exactly.
So anyways, this is kind of a little taste. We want to do this on a format that will be live.
I'm nervous about live.
I am too. I get nervous. I don't know why, but I do. So we want to do that so that you can interact with us. You'll be able to jump on, and you'll be able to comment. And like Scott said, there may be some opportunities that we call in. We are really working hard to get some guests for you to bring on with us. We don't want you to have to just listen to us the whole time. But here's the thing. So how does all this work? How do you start getting ready for this? First of all, buy the book. Buy the book, or as we've already mentioned, it's close to Christmas. Put it on your Christmas list. What a perfect opportunity. If you're listening, buy the book for somebody. Right? If you have a burden, maybe you're a parent and you're like, wow, I wish our Awana leaders or our youth leaders would get involved in this. Buy them the book and tell them about it.
And I believe you don't have to buy the hard. I mean, it's also available on
Kindle.
Stream and Kindle. Yeah. So
you can. I forget what it was, but it was much cheaper if you want to do the Kindle thing.
Certainly.
Yeah. And so what our goal then is going to be is one chapter a month. So if you think I'm just too busy for this, I don't know how I'm going to be able to read. Guys, these chapters are not that long. They're easy reading. And we would rather have you read one chapter and then just chew on that for the month. Think about that. Start applying that. Pastors, youth leaders, kid ministry workers, parents, it doesn't matter who you are, Awana, not Awana, jump in, man. We want you to be a part of this conversation. Start thinking about it either for your church, but also just, hey, how can I do this differently? So you can find us then. Here's what really kind of now the nuts and bolts of trying to help you get connected with us. I mentioned it earlier. The very best place for you to go right now is to go to A Resilient Conversation with Scott and PJ. Just search that on Facebook. You'll find us. Give us a like. There will be continuing content even in between the months. So Lord willing, next month, we're going to kind of do this podcast thing again, but it'll be live. It's not going to be the book.
We're going to try it live.
We're going to take a practice shot at this live thing. So you can feel free then to jump on with us. We will let you know. We're going to communicate with you through that Facebook page. Also, if you're watching this on my YouTube channel, you can subscribe, hit the bell so you get notifications. I upload videos once a week. So if you're like, man, I would like more content, it's not always going to be child discipleship stuff, but it's going to be along the same vein. You can see my other videos there. The benefit is if you care about better quality, you'll get a better quality video on YouTube.
We'll sound better and look better, right?
I hope we need all the help we can get, I think, with that. But YouTube, or Facebook rather, only allows you to stream at 720p.
Only goes 30 minutes.
Apparently it only goes 30 minutes. All right.
How do we want to land the plane?
I was trying to land the plane. My camera timed out here. So anyways, YouTube, Facebook, maybe you say, I don't do either of those things. Podcast, you can do it. We will record these conversations that are live and release them on podcasts. My point is, there are lots of places to jump in this conversation. Even if you can't jump in live, please, please, please do it. Please share this. Our page, we've set it up so that you can share, start building some excitement, start having some conversation. Maybe you've started reading the book and there's things that have already stuck out to you, and we want you to jump in on those things.
Don't miss it. Get the book.
Get the book.
Woohoo!
Be a part of the conversation.
Should be a lot of fun.
The book claims this is the most important conversation we can have. I might agree.
I think so.
We will see you next month. I will see you next week. Thanks again for putting up with a long podcast here. See you later.